Another anomalous trait UAPs seem to have is that they are transmedium.
What was splash?
Transmedium just means that these objects are moving easily between different environments, such as space, our atmosphere, and even underwater. This video was taken from off the coast of San Diego, and the most notable feature is the ability to fly both in air and underwater. As soon as the object nears the water, they are waiting to mark the coordinates, the bearing and range of where this object went down, and they're, I don't know, I'm not sure. This video, I was like, I don't know that I can really, because there's nothing we have that's even remotely close to this, so I don't even really know what to say about it. It looks like it did go into the water. You think that the object has crashed. However, when submarines went to go look for the object, there was no trace of its remains. What's significant about that is that it probably has a capability to also travel under the water. We have nothing here in the United States anyway that can operate as both an aircraft and a submarine.
A recently leaked video of what is allegedly the radar screen aboard the USS Omaha might support the jaw-dropping assertion that this UAP dropped into the water and swam away.
Swam away.
Swam away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you call that when something can live on land and in water?
Oh, amphibious? Like amphibious vehicle?
Yeah, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you guys think at home? Let's start taking questions now. So we're back with Ben Stewart podcast. Thank you guys so much. We took not even really a break last week. It was just a technical thing with equipment. So we're back on. This is going to be the second episode of Catherine Austin Fitz's kind of her take on where the money went. And we went halfway through it, and there was just so much to get into. Either that or Gordo and I like talking afterwards. We went pretty deep. It was pretty interesting. So I would, if you guys didn't see that one, watch this one, then go back and fill in all the gaps. So
yeah, definitely.
So this thing that you just showed us, tell us what this is.
So yeah, like you said, we're going to be still focusing more on the nuance and the important stuff behind following the money with all of these black budget and these things that deal with anything covert, in particular dealing with covert space assets. That could be deep underground military bases. That could be possible actual, spaceships type things, whether they're from off-world potentially, or just ones we're reverse engineering that Lazar and people talk about. This one, though, is the most recent video that's kind of grabbing everyone's attention. Corbell released another video with the radar images to help confirm these sightings, to get more forensic evidence. And I'm blanking, I don't know specifically where. This one might have been the one, I think, actually, where it was at the middle of the night in, like, the middle of the ocean. So that's why, people always say, why isn't the quality better? Because you got to understand the conditions of a lot of times these things, where they're being taken, extremely high speeds, at the middle of the night, in the middle of the ocean, where, just so people know, drones don't have a huge battery life, and they don't really have the ability to go hundreds of miles off the shore of the ocean and come back. So a lot of these things, you just really start to like, okay, let's just look at this objectively. What's your, skeptical argument? Let's look at the counterpoint. And a lot of people, like, I haven't heard anything that's really, really holding water. The drone theory, the spy plane, all that. A lot of people just say, yeah, it's really weird, it's unidentified, but I'm going to stop there because X, Y, and Z reasoning. Once you kind of admit and take the red pill that this is really potentially ET stuff, it is it's a psychological thing in a lot of ways, I see. To me, sometimes
it's totally a psychological thing.
It doesn't seem like the evidence sometimes.
I also get that some people, they want to rule out other things first. And I got to be honest, this isn't like aliens walking out of a spaceship on, like on the White House lawn. It's not definitive like that. It's something that these cameras are picking up. And I fully have considered the opportunity or the possibility that this is extraterrestrial. I'm also consistently going over and over in my head, what else could this be? I'm not just looking at the media like what's their angle, even though that's part of what I do. But right now I'm also thinking like, what do we not know about modern technology? And like, who would this be connected to? You got to think of like, people need their Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They need first fed and they need a house, shelter. And then they need to feel safe. And I think that's where people are in their rationale going over what could this be? Am I being lied to? Because like a lot of, a lot of people that I relate to are also in the I just don't know what I trust out there as far as the story.
Mhm.
And for me, I could do an entire Waking Infinity News on trust
Right.
being not something you need to give outside of yourself. You trust your discernment and your
Right.
ability to be able to maneuver what you're discerning.
I think that's
And I
key.
think we give
Personal
our trust
discernment.
away too much.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Personal discernment is really the key. And I think it's a core theme of all the content we're trying to produce is, critical thinking, independent thinking, but it doesn't mean you can't have interdependent thought. It doesn't mean you can't throw ideas off others. I think it's critical, this whole idea of the echo chamber, like you need to have pushback, you need to challenge. So yeah, as we said from the get of this whole series, like decide for yourself. We're just putting the puzzle pieces out there. We're letting you connect the dots how you see fit. Everyone has a slightly different perspective on this, and nobody knows 100%
Except for the
what's
fact
going
that
on.
it's big.
Yeah, I mean,
everyone at least agrees on that this means something.
Yeah, and when you look at the money and all these elements to it, like, this is serious amounts of money missing. This is seriously game-changing physics and technology we're looking at. And, even this pilot at the end of that video says, this is breaking a lot of the laws of physics. And it's like, okay, so we'll leave it at that. But even leaving it at that, you just see it's like we're right on this teetering point, I feel like. And no one really wants to dive into the deep end yet. Some people are more down to like say, I'll put it out there, I'll speculate here. But I really feel like we're at this teetering point where everyone's like, it's kind of like Copernicus is like, or like a Galileo theory being like, it's getting harder to disprove this guy Copernicus and Galileo. Like, it sounds really out there what he's saying, but I feel like that is kind of this moment. We're at another precipice point.
I feel it. I've talked about the fourth turning before and the 80 to 90 year cycle where crisis periods come up and usually it leads to war. I take a look at that as like most people don't think in 90-year terms, but also we don't think in maybe like a couple 100-year terms. Whereas like when was that? 1400s, 1500s, Copernicus, Galileo. I know they weren't alive at the same time, were they?
No.
This is where my history breaks down.
Yeah,
but you know what? Like several hundred years of time cycles, I kind of feel like we're always moving into different cultural and societal paradigms. Like if you think about it, like and we will get into the economics of it, but I was just thinking the other day something about the economics of where blockchain is going and things that we can't even conceive of. The platform is here, but we can't conceive of where that's going to go. And then when you look at things like centralized, we know what that means, and decentralized, we think we know what that means. And then there's distributed, and that's like equally distributed. And there's like economics in there. One looks like oligarchy, one looks like anarchy, one looks like I don't know, maybe socialism or equal distribution. There's things that we can't even foresee that technology is going to change, I think, in the very near future. So I wouldn't discount technology here. However, I also know that most of us, when we say aliens or ETs, we typically think in a very narrow category of what that could mean, like what kind of a creature it must look like, what it must be capable of. And I don't think we fully understand, but we're getting there with people talking about, can you co-localize your consciousness into technology, that potentially this may not even be the full anatomy of an ET traveling, but it could be somewhat drone, psychologically controlled. Who the hell knows? So the thing is like what I love about this is it's at least all over the world. At least here in the US, everyone's talking about it. I'm not really seeing how other countries are viewing this. Maybe I should ask you that. How are other nations viewing what's coming out now in the US?
That's a really good question. I haven't really looked at it from like a foreign affairs perspective or international affairs. I know the US usually in general is, once we kind of lead on anything, a lot of other countries sort of feel it's okay to follow, especially with national security stuff, because we kind of are the big dog on the block when it comes to the world stage, just from our sheer size of our military. So I've looked at a lot of the history of what other governments have said about UFO, UAP incidents, and certain governments are much more open about it. Certain South American countries in particular. France has been pretty open, but ultimately it always hits some like hard block they'll go only to a certain limb, and I think what I'm getting at is, if the U.S. does make a major step in this June big task force hearing, then it will give a lot of grounds for a lot of other major G20 world powers to do the same. They will follow our lead. I really do feel this way, considering the petrodollar and just how much we really do control the global economy in a lot of ways. And, you know, you're seeing even countries like China, for instance, which, you know, could really give two Fs about what we do in a lot of ways. They haven't come out and said anything either. They're going to the dark side of the moon. They're doing their thing. But the general rule of thumb, whether they've talked about it or not, is let's keep it hush-hush. Very need to know. We don't need to tell the public anything except minimal viable stuff to get them to stop asking questions. And so China hasn't come out and said anything with this. Russia said some strange things before. They have previous things said by the ambassador about they know about ETs, and there's various things. But bottom line, like, we're at a point where all those things that were, you know, the evidence, all this evidence before this, video, photos, interviews, anything, none of that really compares just from a purely like credibility angle to the masses as what's happening now. For instance, even people like, I'll just get personally, or my brother, who's a very big skeptic, works in the government, he's finally like admitting to UFOs being a real thing because the Pentagon has said it. He's very much, the Pentagon says it, then I'll be down with it, then I'll agree. And there's a lot of people, especially in the bureaucratic public sector, that is their real lead they follow. So this is big for that reason. It's hitting out everyone.
I think that's got to be a fundamental, almost like archetypal aspect of what this is doing. Is it's causing for us to, even what you just said right there is I mean, it's when you look at the way most people, they look at, are they safe first, then they'll hunt the truth. I guess what I'm saying is like a lot of people, they feel safer in the herd than they do on the fringe seeking for truth.
Oh yeah,
and so that's why you'll have politicians and like you'll have people that are policy holders, and their first, again, this is a very broad blanket statement, but thinking in that way, they think of their pension, they think of their family, they think of like, well, if I believe this to be true, what does that mean? I have to make a moral decision whether I stand by it.
An economic decision, like you said.
What's going to happen with my kids and stuff like that, you know?
That's a huge part of it.
Herd mentality, we are in such a distributed liability system that I remember when people, and I'm not going to try and like tie anything today as to what was going on in Nazi Germany, but like when we hear about these things in history and we're like, how could any human do that to another human? Oh, we can justify a lot of hideous things if we have the most clever, eloquent justification. We could justify doing the most terrible things because like if you show where the victim is, like we're the victim here, you know, we need to protect ourselves and it's all about my kids and I will get nasty, you know, and most people can understand that, but like the nuances of how that plays out, I guess what I'm saying is like what news like this could mean for the very near future is that more people catch wind that our own politicians by and large are more likely to take the safe bet for their family than they are to go for truth. And the more stuff like that starts to become obvious, I almost feel like all of this is going to have to really start changing in the next few years as we start reconsidering our position in the universe. And I want to get into Catherine Austin Fitts. I don't want to go too long, but like, this is big. Let's just put it, cap on it right there. This is huge. Nobody is saying that this is just smoke and mirrors. There's a reason why this is happening.
Yeah. And just to tie that in a knot, I truly, I mean, we know, Yuval Harari has written some amazing books all about sapiens and our history, and everyone knows we are very much tribal herd species, and it is primal, ingrained in us from the earliest hunter-gatherers to, if you get separated from the herd for whatever reason, you're injured, you're exiled, you're most likely going to die. You know, strength in numbers was very important for a large percentage of the Homo sapien history. So that's still very much ingrained in us. The same with the amygdala, to be afraid of a saber-toothed tiger. We've been hijacked with all these new things. So yeah, that's a big part of it, is the psychological component. And I don't take that lightly when I talk to somebody who especially is skeptical, because this is serious stuff, you know, like as far as how it could impact people if they start kind of accepting these things. And it's cool if people aren't ready yet. I get it, because you'll feel safer once the masses are more into it, and the people who lead the masses, these institutions that have that sort of institutional power, it will, I think, give people more of an opportunity to be like, okay, now I'm cool with it. So yeah, it's exciting in a lot of fronts.
Make sure y'all head over to benjosephstewart.com, become a member. You'll have access to the growing library of deeper dives where I talk about all the stuff that I really can't talk about on YouTube. Make sure you get involved in the Discord chat. That's where a lot of the conversation is happening, talking about new theories, being able to interweave into the greater conversation that is how we awaken infinity. That's our highest potential. And I just want to remind you, you are the most powerful technology ever known to creation. Wield it like an artist with a conscience.